If we are live, let us know in the comment thread. We're gonna begin this conversation. Welcome to part 2 of Global Immersion's Everyday Peacemaking in the Pandemic webinar series. In part 1, we explored our interconnection as a global family and how this unique moment, the COVID-19 moment, requires that we see beyond the boundaries and borders and binaries that have divided us for a long time. Yesterday, friends from Palestine, Australia, Costa Rica, they offered a riveting global analysis of this moment and what it tells us about our shared humanity. Global immersion. Somebody is listening in, so I can actually hear that we are live. I really want to encourage you to give yesterday's conversation a view. I want to say, especially to faith leaders, academic leaders, nonprofit leaders, it's an incredible resource for your teams, for your people, for your students, to have kind of this high view theological worldview conversation about our shared oneness. And so you'll see the link populating in the comment thread right now to grab access to that, to part 1. We're recognizing that now is not a time to react as though any of us have anything figured out. It seems like the conversation is shifting hour by hour. And so this webinar series is not about a whole bunch of prescriptions. Because we don't have any. What we have is one another. We have each other's stories, and we have a shared passion for human flourishing. And that's what drives us into these conversations over the next couple of weeks. Our hope in this 4-part series is that we explore what it means to be everyday peacemakers in the context of this unique moment. And so my name is Jared Swigert. I'm the co-founding director of the Global Immersion Project, and we form communities of everyday peacemakers who join God and others in remaking the world. From our point of view, everyday peacemakers are women and men who see the humanity, dignity, and image of God in themselves and one another. We immerse into conflict, or in this case, into pandemics, equipped with tools to transform. We contend not by getting even, but by getting creative in love. And then we participate in the restoration. We restore all the broken things, from relationships to systems that crush people. Haley, I think I hear you eating a snack in the background. So why do we do what we do? Because we believe that restoration is the mission of God. And we believe that peacemaking is not an add-on to our faith. It's the essence of it. It's like the high octane fuel that drives everything that we do every moment of every day. And so welcome to this conversation. I want us to get familiar. We want to have access to one another throughout this conversation. And so familiarize yourself right now with the comment thread section, wherever you're calling in from. If you can say your name, the city and state that you're calling in from or viewing this from, as well as what is the question or what is the hope or maybe even the hesitation that you have that drives you into this conversation. Our conversation partners today, when we're not talking to one another or to you, we're actually going to be interacting with your comments and your questions right in the comment section itself. So let's be accessible to one another. And if you can begin that, friends, by populating the comment section right now, that'd be great. I want to encourage you to ask questions as this conversation unfolds. As I said, we're going to be interacting with them either in conversation or in the comment thread as real time as possible. So go ahead and be assertive in the comment thread. I'm really excited about who we get to learn alongside of here today. 3 friends of mine, Maya Anista Smith from Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation, Terrence Lester from Love Beyond Walls, and Morgan Schmidt, a local pastor in Bend, Oregon, who has begun an initiative called Pandemic Partners that, as you'll hear very shortly, has stirred quite a movement in Central Oregon. And so I'm going to step out of the way and let these 3 introduce themselves. Maya, we're going to start with you. Just if the 3 of you would offer just a little bit on who you are, the work that you're engaged in, as well as an analysis of this moment. What is this moment teaching us about us?
It's a great question. Thank you so much, Jaron, to my other little boxes up top. It's so great to be with you guys in this moment, mostly to have a reason to brush my hair in this weird time that we're living in. So I'm Maya Smith. I have the incredible privilege of serving as executive director of Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation. Our mission is to build a kinder and a braver world. We do work that has 3 goals. The first is to make kindness cool. The second is to validate the emotions of young people around the world. And the third is to eliminate the stigma around mental health. I've not, in the 8 years that the foundation has existed and that I've been part of it, I've not seen a moment in which those goals have been as practical and urgent as they are now. And so we are in real time learning what it means to practice those internally and externally. I have to be honest, this is probably one of the first times I've had to think about it internally, right? We've always think about ourselves as vehicles to make change and serve and create and support each other externally, but how we take care of ourselves is one of the things that I'm wrestling with as a leader. So I think in terms of what I'm learning in this moment, one, and I'm a hopeful, almost over the top idealist, right? So even I'm clinging on to that desperately. So I think one is abundance. Abundance comes in so many different ways, even in the darkest times. So thinking about what abundance we have in this moment and how we can use it to serve the unmet needs of others, because we all have different types of abundance. So at the foundation, we're thinking about of knowledge, of information, of finances, of resources, of voice. What type of abundance that do we have that we can put in service to the world? The second piece is we're just so connected, and our dependence and our survival is so interconnected, but it looks so different, right? And Terrence, we were talking about this before we got started, right? Some people, this is family time, right? And people are just saying, oh, I'm homeschooling and having to spend much more time with my kids as usual. But for some people, it's life or death, right? For some people, it's hoarding and buying up all the toilet paper and getting extra food in case they can't leave the house. And for some people, it's not being able to afford that toilet paper or find that toilet paper, right? For some people, it's social distancing. And for some people, it's mental health, social isolation, suicidal ideation, right? And so the same things means so many different things in this moment, and how we navigate the different languages and the lived experiences and validate each of those. I think that's what our survival depends on in this moment, and that's what the team at Born This Way Foundation and these incredible boxes of people up here and the movements they represent are working on.
Amazing. Thank you, Maya. So good to have you in this dialogue. Morgan, let's move down to you.
My name is Morgan Schmidt, and I am one of the pastors at First Presbyterian Church in Bend, Oregon. Kind of accidentally launched a movement that we're calling Pandemic Partners, located on Facebook and in Facebook groups. The genesis of that being just in conversation with our church staff, wondering, what do we do now that people can't gather? How do we continue to care for one another? How do we continue to link our neighbors together? What is the opportunity? Not in an opportunistic sense, but how can we create good news in the midst of this unfolding situation that has so many people so legitimately worried and so concerned. So we started a Facebook group, and the heart of that group is that we're crowdsourcing kindness. And that is a place where people from all over Bend and Central Oregon are landing who, it's really, really simple. If you need help, you ask, and if you can help, you respond. And we have just seen an incredible response from our local community doing that, and have seen now a bunch of other groups pop up. So my team on this end, we're doing our best to actually create some resources so that platforms like this can be spread far and wide, and groups like this can be available, because the response has just been overwhelming. One of the group jokes with the moderators and myself is that we get help requests and we just kind of laugh, like, this person doesn't even know how much they're about to receive. And we had volunteers expressing frustration that there wasn't enough help being requested, that they just were so anxious to be able to help their neighbors. But this has just become a really beautiful community. So we're hoping to spread these platforms for crowdsourcing kindness as much as we can in this season. And we know that the situation continues to unfold in different ways in different places. So it's constantly changing, but I am learning so much about the inherent goodness of people, about their willingness to help one another and really step up, and how honestly, I think there's been a lot of judgment of social media over the last 2 decades, maybe, how it separates people. And in this season, we are finding it to be an incredible tool of connection, where people from all different walks of life are being able to connect with each other when they never would have met face to face. So they're immersing into each other's lives in a way that never would have happened before. And beyond that, we're able to use some of this influence now to help our local community nonprofits and agencies really centralize information, really kind of streamline their processes. We're the ones they go to when the food bank needs warehouse managers and things like that. So we're just trying to be a conduit for individuals to meet individuals, and for these agencies and nonprofits to get what they need.
I love it. I love the phrase crowdsourcing kindness. It's, I mean, it dovetails so beautifully too into what Born This Way is all about. But like, it is a free sourcing, crowdsourcing thing that I think you're probably seeing links to Born This Way and Pandemic Partner show up in the comment thread right now. For those of you who understand yourself as faith leaders or as entrepreneurs or local pioneers of goodness, I would begin to interact with Morgan. I'd encourage you to do that right now, especially faith leaders who are trying to figure out, like, how are we moving beyond sustaining our worship gatherings and mobilizing our people into practice. We'll probably get to this in a little bit, but it'd be interesting to learn from Morgan how it is that she's actually moderating this, because I see her actually pastoring the movement rather than just mobilizing it. There's a life, a heartbeat that's being invested into the thing. So get curious with her about that. Terrence, let's go over to you, my friend.
Yeah, my name is Terrence Lester. I'm the executive director and founder of Love Beyond Walls. We're based in Atlanta, Georgia. Specifically, we do narrative justice work around homelessness and poverty. We combat the false dominant narratives that exist and the social constructions that exist against a population of people who are oftentimes invisible. We also do work from our center in providing a community of welcome. We're really about welcoming and giving people who are houseless a safe space to exist, to have their dignity affirmed. We kind of lead with the idea that we're a global village and we're all connected through the tapestry of life. And when one part hurts, we all hurt. And so people who come and participate and are involved in our work, we like to tear down the walls that exist between people, social classes, etc. And we are all about welcoming all people to the table. And we've been able to be really effective in this work. One of the things that we're working on now, we were talking about offline before we actually started this live, was what people actually living on the streets are facing now. They've been experiencing social distancing since forever, right? And now this new coined phrase, social distancing, has compounded on what they've already been experiencing with the invisibility. And just this past week, we've had a lot of friends come to our space, just in tears almost, talking about their fear of catching COVID-19 because they don't have access to water, right? And one of my friends, Dimitri, we started this conversation. He got me thinking about a more sustainable way to provide water for people who are houseless, since they're saying washing your hands is one of the ways that protects you against contracting this virus. And so we built this portable hand washing station. And in the last couple of days, we have been mobilizing small groups of people to take these hand washing stations out. Yesterday, we were able to go out, and this guy literally stood in front of it and cried because he hadn't washed his hands all week. You think about restaurants not allowing you to come in. You think about public spaces, libraries being closed, and things being on lockdown. And many people have even expressed concerns about not being able to get food and have access to food. So in this very small way, we're showing people that we can still be very much present and loving a neighbor. And a neighbor doesn't necessarily have to have an address, right? Mm-hmm. A neighbor could be somebody who is living and breathing and is deserving of the love and work of God. So that's a little bit about me. And what it's teaching me, man, that we need to be healthy in all aspects of life. You think about our kids being home, think about proximate relationships with our children. How are we parenting? proximate relationships with our spouses or partners, if you have one, proximate relationships, even with ourselves. How are you caring for yourself? But also, like, it's showing how we are need to heal socially, how we need to heal in our relationships in our churches, in the way that we do church, in the way that we service one another. So it's just all about healing, like holistically, right? We're getting this moment to pause and think about ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Terrence. Yeah, it does feel like the moment provides such a remarkable opportunity to interrogate some things, interrogate some values, interrogate some practices. One of our panelists said yesterday, Dr. Ruth Padilla de Borst from Costa Rica, she said, we can prepare in this moment for the reality that there will be a post-coronavirus world. And what does it mean for us to establish a new set of rhythms and values and habits right now that look like the embodiment of creative love? So that in a post-corona world, we actually show up differently as a human family, And so, friends, those of you who are viewing in, you now know who our conversation partners are. You know the work that they're doing, and so I invite you to. What are the questions that are stirring up, and you already hit it in the comment section as we now begin to dive into the actual dialogue here at hand. 2 quick framing thoughts, and then we're going to get right into it. Number 1, this pandemic is not prejudice. As all pandemics do, this one defies social constructions. It's not beholden to political party, creedal commitment, ethnicity, sexual orientation. Borders and boundaries cannot contain this virus. It's impacting all of us in ways that reveal just how interconnected we are. So what are we going to do as a human family in this moment? That's thought number 1. Number 2, with the invisibility of this virus and with, I think, a growing uncertainty with regard to its impact and its reach, many of us are asking the question, how do we care well for one another? How do we contend for one another? Or put a different way, how do we actually accompany our neighbors, especially the most vulnerable among us? That's the question, really, that frames our conversation here today. We want to get hyper practical because the world actually needs us to become hyper practical in the answers to these questions. And so I'm going to bring it back over to you, Maya, and I want you to interact with kind of these 2 questions. The first is, in this conversation about coronavirus, COVID-19, there's this idea of social distancing, as Terrence just talked about. And there's also this reality of the necessity of courageous neighbor love. So it's a both and. I just wonder, how are you guys thinking about holding that tension? And then the second thing is, I just wonder if you can share with us some stories, very practical stories of creative and costly love that are occurring within the Born This Way community.
Absolutely. I'd be honored to. And I think there's a little bit of danger in the social distance language, right? I think what we're talking about is physical distance and social connection, right? And really needing to reframe that and lean into that, because for so many young people who are facing these types of, like, for example, my first day of college was September 11th, 2001, right? And so that was the last moment where I just remember the world shook for me, right? But for a lot of the young people that we work with, the world has never shaken for them the way that it's shaking right now. And this idea of distancing yourself from one another, I think, really needs to be reframed. So what we've seen from young people before this pandemic has been that young people want to solve problems not just for themselves, but for everybody, right? This is a collaborative, entrepreneurial, diverse, hopeful generation. I think 2 examples that have really sprung up over the past couple of years, but continue to be urgent today, are my friends at the Find Your Anchor box, and then my friends at the Not Okay app. So the Find Your Anchor box was founded by this incredible young woman named Allie Borowski, and she's a 4-time suicide attempt survivor, knock on wood. And when she was trying to fight to keep herself alive, she thought about this idea of becoming an anchor, right? Maybe she wasn't in that moment strong enough to be an anchor for herself, but she could help be an anchor for other people. So she's created this box, this really tangible suicide prevention resource that has these 52 reasons to stay alive, mental health resources, some incredible tangible tips. So if you go check it out, Find Your Anchor box, I'll drop it when I'm done talking in the comment box. But what Allie did in that is she helped herself, but then she sent out more than 6,000 boxes into the world to help other people. So what we're seeing right now is people like Allie. She just did this amazing Instagram video 2 days ago. She said, if you want to contribute to these boxes, if you want to help be an anchor to other people, write notes and I'll put them into the boxes, and they'll go to the more than 4,000 requests she has right now for boxes. The Not Okay app, it's an incredible online resource where you can upload 5 people, and instead of the burden being put on you to say like, hey, I'm not okay today, it's like a panic button, and you press the button and those 5 people are notified that Maya is not okay, right? And this was created by a sister who was watching her little brother be bullied in school, and she wanted to use technology to solve a problem. So I think today and every day there are countless examples of young people rising to the occasion of connecting to themselves, connecting to each other, and solving problems. Those are 2 of my favorite. And I think we created at Born This Way Foundation a platform called channelkindness.org, and encourage you guys to check it out. Channel Kindness was a vehicle by which we changed the narrative around this apathetic, disengaged, violent generation. We know, all of us on the screen know that that's not the story of these young people, but that's the story that is told for them, right? And so we wanted to use the platform that we had to tell a different story. So right now, channelkindness.org is pushing out content that tells a different story, not of millennials on beaches in Hawaii or Florida spring breaking, right? But on stories of millennials who are going, knocking on doors, making sure their elderly neighbors are taken care of, filling food banks to make sure that service can continue in the absence of people who might not be able to volunteer in those moments. What we've seen over this past week from millennials, from everybody, communities across the world, has been a spirit of connection and community. And I think the stories are overwhelming. And I think from each of the boxes, we heard that kindness is all around us. And I think continuing to look for that kindness, but also being really honest and vulnerable about like, this is hard and this is painful and I'm scared and I do not know. I run a national organization and I have many people that I employed and I do not know the answers. I think that's also really important. So look for the kindness, hope, create it if you can't find it, but then be vulnerable, be honest and candid.
Thanks, Maya. I wonder, there are some questions coming up right now in the comment thread, Maya, that I would love for you to begin to explore. I wonder if you could speak a little bit more on the channel kindness bit and how you see storytelling as a thing that we can do right now. What's the value of storytelling in a moment like this?
Oh, it's so important. It's so important. And storytelling in the honest, raw, vulnerable sense, right? Not in the performative, like filter sense. Like, I have been home with my children for 5 days. Like, that's like, we're going to buy a puppy tomorrow because I need them to find a little bit of joy, right? And like, this is the result of the pain is the puppy, but I am unable to control the world in a way to give my children certainty and peace and comfort and joy. And I have all the money, all the knowledge, all the resources, all the support. I have all of the privilege in the world, and yet, right, I'm spiraling to find a way to bring joy to my kids' lives, right? And so I think being honest about the everyday experiences of how we survive these days individually and collectively is so important. And then, we have practices at the foundation and as a family of, gratitude practices and finding ways to serve others. The Points of Light Institute put out an incredible resource on virtual volunteering, right? If I start spiraling too much and read too many articles and start getting too many puppies, I think to myself, I need to do something for someone else. And there are such amazing lists in this moment that I hope we'll share in the comments of ways you can serve others. And I'm sure Morgan and Terrence both have many, many other resources.
Yeah. One last question to kind of put you on the spot on that, because I have, I've for over almost a decade of our friendship, I love the way that you engage your kids in this work. And so can you just give us, I know that there are a number of parents on the call right now wondering like, okay, when like the math worksheets run out, what do I do with my kids? And the answer is let's get them involved in kindness and in creative love and the work of global peacemaking, because we can do it from our kitchen tables right now. So can you just give us one picture of like how are you engaging your kids in this, and maybe even how are you talking to them about it, and then connecting that to the project that you're doing?
Yeah. So I think first, kids know, right? So my kids are 7 and 4. They hear me talking, they hear the world around them. And so being honest with your children about this moment that we're in age appropriate ways, I think is really important. And inviting them into creatively problem solving. So every day we write something on this like whiteboard that we have that we're grateful for. And Logan, who's 4, said yesterday that she's grateful for the helpers that are fighting coronavirus, right? And then, so get creative with that, to use your language, Jer, right? What does that mean, Logan? What are we grateful for? How can we tell them that we're grateful? How can we thank them? And her solution was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And so we're going to find some of our nurses, some of our friends are nurses, and we're going to bring Kevin and his amazing team at Kaiser some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But I think every day, in every interaction that we have, in every conversation, in every opportunity, what is the unmet need? So like right now, and Jer, I don't know if anyone else here is a runner like Jer, I have never felt the need to go for a run. I've never had the urge to like flee on foot. Now I do. And so I went on a run the other day, but it didn't feel like enough. So I sent an email to my neighbors and I said, if anybody has food, if anyone has non-perishable food items that they'd like me to bring over to the food bank, this would make my runs feel purposeful. I will run from your house to my house, pick up the food, from your house to my house, pick up the food, right? So in these moments, how can we multitask to take care of ourselves and others at the same time? Because we've never been given this gift of time to think of that kind of stuff, right? This is the first time in 8 years of leading Born This Way Foundation that I've been able to simultaneously be proactive and reactive, right? So that's just, I'm going on a lot of runs, picking up a lot of food for the Contra Costa Food Bank.
That's amazing. Yeah, thanks for getting really, really practical with us in terms of family life too. I think that's a critical question that so many of us are asking. I remember like my boys this morning were watching the trash truck drive down, and we then had a conversation about like he think about all of the people that our friend Lance, the trash truck driver, is coming in contact with on a daily basis. How do we honor him? How do we celebrate him? How do we take care of him? And this or that. So it's like, these are the kinds of conversations that, if nothing else, are beginning to expand the awareness of our kids to a great big world that we're all a part of. So great thoughts. Maya will jump into the comment section and start to interact with what she's seeing there. Terrence, let's pop over to you. I've been dying to have this conversation with you first and foremost about holding this tension of social distancing and creative love. And on the one hand, maybe there's wisdom. On the other hand, maybe there's privilege there. And on the third hand, people actually need us to transcend the boundaries and borders of safety in order to actually tend to some stuff. So interact with that. Like, how have you been thinking about that as we're seeing pictures of you with masks on, putting sinks in urban centers? And then get practical with us. What are a couple stories that you're seeing come to life, and how can we replicate that in our own neighborhoods?
Yeah, for sure. Well, firstly, I just want to acknowledge that it is hard, that I have a family. I have 2 kids and a wife, and I'm in constant contact and conversation with them about, having the courage to actually go out of our house when we're, been, encouraged to stay in. And there's this tension. We walk over to the sink and we turn on our running water, but I know many of the people that we love and care about in our community that may or may not have an address will not have access to that. And so earlier this week, I was at our office right down by Atlanta Airport, and I was engaged in some conversations with some guys that were literally, like I said earlier, were in tears because they don't have access to running water. I mean, as we hear about all these updates on social media or whatever news station that you tune into, there is very little talk about people who are actually living on the streets. There's very little talk about how they're more prone to contract the virus because they're constantly in contact with uh, spaces that have a lot of germs. They're in spaces where they can't necessarily sanitize themselves. But we hear a lot of talk about we have to wash our hands. We have to, maintain our cleanliness. And so, um, if it's privilege, call it privilege. I wanted to take my voice and try to mobilize some people to actually take sinks out within the certain number of people that can be around each other to provide water. Water is an essential thing right now, and soap, because it gives you the ability to maintain washing your hands. Just yesterday, man, we were downtown and we saw this guy. There was this group out there like disseminating meals, and we saw this guy run over to the sink to wash his hands before he ate. I mean, just think about that. When you're living on the streets, you're around dirt, you're shaking hands, you're around a lot of spaces that don't give you that opportunity to wash your hands. And we don't think about that in our minds that, man, we need to wash our hands before we even, consume food. And uh, I would just say for me, I've had to be courageous because, and courage is not the absence of fear, it's not like I'm going out and I have a cape on and I'm like Superman. Like every single second, I'm asking myself, will I contract this virus? Will I transmit this to my family? And it's a real tension. But at the end of the day, I'm also thinking about the healthcare workers that are constantly showing up. The police officers, the EMTs, the firefighters, the doctors. I've seen several posts on social media where it's shown doctors not even having on masks, right? Because they don't have any more, but they're still showing up. I have a friend right now named Jasmine Crow. She launched an organization called Gooder a couple years ago, which is a company that does food rescuing, right? The school systems are shut down, but there are kids right now that literally depend on the meals inside of the schools. And her company is using this technology to mobilize people to rescue food to make sure communities that don't have access to these basic essentials have them. I mean, we have to think about these things. I have another friend right now, Casey Benning, like she's a mental health counselor. Like every single week she's going live and fielding questions so people can process this trauma, because it is trauma based. Although we are stagnant and still, we've never experienced this before. This is uncharted territory. And so she's helping people with tips on how to care for themselves. She's talking to people offline, helping them to process their trauma. And I'm just, at the end of the day, Jared, it's like you said earlier, man, I'm seeing myself as a part of the greater tapestry, right? It's this analogy or this metaphor, right? If a garment or a shirt has one single thread that is unraveling, a designer or the owner of the shirt doesn't throw the whole garment away, right? It cares for the individual thread, which caring for the thread is actually caring for the entire garment. And that's the metaphor. And I think that's what we're all trying to communicate, is to have ourselves think about small ways that we can impact each other. The sister said earlier, crowdsource this kindness, right? And so I've seen people in our neighborhood run errands for the elderly, right? Literally pick up the phone call, hey, you need something? I'm going to the store, and pick up items while they're at the store. I've seen people literally create intentional time as they are navigating this space of like working on their assignments for work and homeschooling, to like carving out time to check on friends intentionally who they know wrestle with anxiety and depression, because that's the real thing. The sister said earlier that it's not just social distancing, but it's also social isolation, and how we care for people and creating these constant connections says a lot about what's in our heart, but it also says a lot about this need for us to step across the line, to reach out, because reaching out sometimes is seen as weak, when in actuality it is strength. I've seen groups also organize support for single moms. Man, you think about the number of mothers right now that are, caring for kids, trying to work or working an hourly job, not making living wages and trying to maintain it all together. I have another friend that leads an organization called Helping Mamas, where she's been rallying together to provide like baby supplies, right? Diapers, milk, all of the things that moms are concerned with when they're running all around. And so, yeah, also another thing, which is huge, is sharing only confirmed responsible information. Man, people, man, like just scrolling on your timeline will send you into it will put you on a roller coaster. You'll see information. Oh, it's getting better. There's some resolved cases to like all these people are dying to. We don't have vaccines to. You can't go and get tested to. I mean, it's just so much information. And I would really encourage people not to post assumptions, but really do your research and post information that is benefiting to the community, because I think we also can add gas to the fire when we are posting information who follow us online, content that could further drive them into a state of anxiety and depression. So I don't know, I said a lot, but
No, that's hyper practical. Yeah, Maya, jump in.
So I actually want to ask Morgan this in light of Terrence's comments, right? Like there is this like moment right now, like this is the first time people are sick. This is the first time people are alone. This is the first time people are without, right? And we know from our work that that's not the case. So how this sustains, right? How like I don't just go back to normal on a run without a purpose, right? How I'm interested with your hyper local work, Morgan. Like, how do we how do we after this moment? Like, how do we change ourselves because of this moment? And how do neighbors keep helping neighbors?
Yeah, no, my heart has gone to that question a few different times. To be honest, I think the more platforms we have like this that are super local and a place for neighbors to connect with neighbors, to crowdsource kindness, we'll get to do all kinds of cool stuff after this. But I think right now, honestly, our focus needs to stay here, and just to know that we have these people who are just so excited to care for their neighbors, and we can kind of pull learnings from those as we go and kind of guide a community in that direction and have those conversations. But for me, watching what's happening in the community right now, people are just responding to really immediate felt needs, and that seems like where I think at least I need my focus to be. But I know that we're going to have all these really cool communities of Facebook folks itching to do more when the dust kind of settles on this.
I wonder too, I mean, Morgan, we are in the same city, and I'm watching, I've been watching this unfold. I mean, it is, if you haven't yet clicked into Pandemic Partners Bend, do it, because I think it gives you a really beautiful example here of how you can maybe hold this tension of social distancing and radical creative love in the moment, right? You probably don't have enough time to actually scroll through all of the stories to see how, like, there were moments, Morgan, when I was watching, the elderly shut-in asking for a thermometer, and like 77 people said, "What's your address? I'm there." Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I was watching this stuff go on. So give us your analysis then on this, holding this tension of social distancing and creative, costly love. And then tell us some of the stories that you're seeing unfold in ways that can help us. We may not start Facebook groups, but how do we participate in this way in the immediate, in the moment right now? And then we'll have a more of a conversation about life after the pandemic in a second.
Right. I hope that people will start launching these in their own cities. And unfortunately, I made a terrible error when I set up our group to make it a private page. So you can't see it unless you join, but everyone can join. And we're too big now for us to change that setting. So I've been reaching out to folks at Facebook to help me fix that. But that's a real indicator that anyone can do this, and you don't have to be a social media guru to, and we're too big now to launch a page like this. Anyone can do it. We now have a bunch of towns all over Oregon who are starting their own pages and allowing this crowdsourced kindness movement to kind of take over. I think what's amazing about kind of what we've accidentally stumbled upon is that we provide a landing page for individuals to connect. And Jer's right, as soon as a need is posted, it's pretty incredible how quickly it is being met, or and the wide range of things. So we're trying to help people, and we only put through information about kind of the strictest social distancing guidelines. Even as stores are having, special hours for seniors to shop, we're saying this is an absolute last resort. Please, if you are over 60, stay home and utilize the volunteers on this page to do your groceries, to do your errands. We need to minimize their exposure to other people. And porch drops have just kind of become the norm. I was surprised by a chai left on my doorstep this morning by by one of our moderators. And then the other thing that I'm learning and that we're developing here is that a lot of, kind of like Terrence said, there's a lot of information going around. A lot of it lives on Facebook. And one of the things I noticed early on is that a lot of our communities don't have a hub. We don't have one place where people can go for all the information. So we've developed a bunch of resources for our community that are specific to Bend, but systems that could be recreated in other communities. Where, for instance, we have one point person that's managing a Google Doc where things can be updated day by day, and that link remains the same wherever it's been shared, where all of our local nonprofit and agencies offering social services can make sure their information is up to date. So if the food bank hours change, it goes into that document and we can direct folks to the most up-to-date information. We worked with the city to make sure that people have clarity around childcare guidelines and what licensed childcare options there are. We're trying to make sure that we are a hub for really solid information and for people to connect. So that's what I've learned as we've kind of rejected a lot of posts. There's so many things people want to share and so many other places to share them if they're not serving our mission of neighbors really being able to help neighbors. And then the other really cool thing that's happened as a result of being able to do this is that unfortunately, and we're using it to our advantage, a lot of folks are out of work. A lot of folks have a lot of time on their hands. Many of them are stuck at home and self-isolating, but many of them are willing to help. And so this hub has given us a place to mobilize those people to say, we're going to plug you in here. So for instance, we partnered with a local website that's hosting all of our volunteer opportunities for local nonprofits. Our food bank is anticipating needing to make deliveries of food boxes to people that need food. And the director said to me, I need 40 drivers. Can you get me 40 drivers? And I helped them get a campaign going on this website. And within a couple hours, they had 45 drivers ready to bring food boxes to their neighbors. And even today, that's been an overwhelming shift for that local food bank. So, that same director said, I'm not sure we're ready to deliver yet. We don't have a system in place. And I said, I have a project manager who's brilliant that I'm going to send your way, who's going to help you with your system so that you can focus on feeding people. So it's just been an incredible place for folks to offer their skills and their availability, doing our very best to follow those social distancing practices. But there's a lot that we can do for each other when we meet in one place and offer to help one another. And I feel like I'm rambling, so.
It's brilliant. You're not rambling. You're dialed. Let me, a couple questions. One, because I hear you saying, actually, we want to see, not that you're controlling it or can control, but it's so effective here and you're literally seeing it spread into different cities here in Central Oregon. You would love to see, and so you guys have actually created resources for how people could pioneer these in your own communities, right? That's one thing. And the second thing is, I do think there is power to how you're moderating this. And so can you reflect a little bit on how, because you're not just letting this thing, like like, you're a guardian of false information. I see you stopping just the random, like, hey, I need a cheeseburger. Can anybody get that for me? You're like, that's not what this is, you know? But then you're also breathing encouragement. You keep saying you're doing it. This is happening. Look what's happening. Like, you're cheerleading too. So talk to us a little bit about your philosophy behind that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, as soon as we experienced pretty exponential growth as soon as I launched this group, which was unexpected to say the least. And so we've been getting some media coverage, and just pretty quickly realized that if we can have some resources available to the public, it's an open kind of link to a Google Drive folder that has like 6 of our key documents, and those contain our resources. They contain a sheet that that will train people how to even set up your own Facebook group with our best practices and the rules that are working for us right now. Rules being just ways that we can clarify for people why their post isn't being posted, not necessarily to be authoritarian, but to say, hey, there's other places to post that really funny meme. This is not it. And so, yeah, we wanted to make these resources available, and in the overview document in that folder, we'll make sure that link is available, and please, people, share that far and wide. In the overview document, you know, I offer myself as a potential coach. I've been working with 6 or 7 sites as far away as Minnesota. Shout out to Becker and Big Lake, Minnesota. It's awesome, I know. So I'm offering just to be here to help get folks set up and rolling, and orient them to those documents. And then we actually even have like a graphic designer that's willing to make you a graphic, a pandemic partners, fill in the city name, kind of logo for the top of your page. So we want to help people get going. And part of our secret sauce, I think, is how quickly we were able to get up and running. So we want to help that movement spread just as quickly as possible, and hope that people kind of follow in our philosophical footsteps of crowdsourced kindness and neighbors helping neighbors, and try to do just as good of a job of protecting that mission on their page as possible. But all those resources are available, and we don't feel the need to micromanage that. We're just here to help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of those documents that's really important is a moderator guide, and that is a document that keeps evolving. But that link will give you the most up-to-date version of what we're using with our moderator team. I think I've got about 8 or 9 folks on our moderating team, and they are saving my life right now, because the first 5 days, I think, were like 20-hour days getting this thing up and running, and then just maintaining the site and taking care of people. But sorry, Haley, I got distracted. But our moderation, I think, is really has really been important. I've asked folks to come on who have a combination of an ability to be kind and really thoughtful. When I orient our new mods, I say to them, you know, everybody's feeling a lot of feelings right now. And one of the things that we can do is be a non-anxious presence, and a presence of kindness, and help direct the conversation into effective ways that meet our goals of neighbors actually helping each other out. So, but then I also need them to be kind of cutthroat in terms of what they allow through. So they're a really special bunch of people. And one of the things allowing that to happen is not only that moderator guide, but we also started a moderator kind of chat thread on Facebook that is sometimes really funny, and sometimes just really helpful. So one of the things happening right now in Bend is our hospital, like many, are low on personal protective equipment supplies. And there's a movement, and in some places, I think medical personnel are accepting these, but in Bend, we are not yet. People sewing masks for medical providers. And I just keep saying to folks, you know, they haven't asked for that yet. So we're not doing that yet. And when they do, I'll be the first one to post it, but we're not going to just let rumors keep flying if things are going to actually put our medical personnel more at risk. I'm waiting on official channels for that. So things like that, the moderators are doing a really good job of kind of checking in with each other and problem solving and responding with some strength, but also with some real real kindness and grace. So I wouldn't, I don't think I'd be conscious right now to do this if not for them, even as we speak, moderating the page. And the other part that they do is they follow up. So we have a system where when posts come in, we tag them with either a help request or a help offered, or there's a few other tags, but those are our most important ones. And then it's a moderator's job a couple times a day to follow up with those help requests and say, hey, did you get what you needed? And then when that happens, we get to mark them with a giant success tag, and folks can go back through and read about the many success stories that are coming out of this page. I write what people are referring to as like a good night post every night at the end of my my day, and it's kind of a recap and Jared, like you were saying, like a way of cheering on our community, saying it's working. That's kind of been my mantra. I can't believe this is working. I can't believe how much is being accomplished through this community. It's working. So I've heard from folks who don't need anything and feel like they can't really even offer anything, and they're still tuning into the page just to hear those success stories, just to read those good night posts, just to stay connected. And what's cool is that like people are coming up with ideas I never would have. This morning we had one senior living facility say, we're no longer letting them eat communally. We need TV trays because a lot of them don't have kitchen tables. Can you guys get me TV trays? And I was like, you're going to get a lot of TV trays. I had one person jump on calling all of our local stores to see what their inventory was, updating the thread to say, you can go get 4 at Walmart right now. They're available. And then other people are like, I don't have TV trays, but I would be happy to have a meal with them virtually. If you want to help set that up, I'm available for that. So people are just responding in the most beautiful, generous, grassroots ways that we're just a container for that magic. We're just cheering them on and encouraging them to continue.
So if you're listening in right now, and again, you heard Morgan say, like, you don't have to be a social media guru to do this. The tools are there. This is something that you can replicate in your own community. So perhaps a connection with Morgan in the comment thread or grabbing a hold of those resources is the next step that you can take. I know for my kids and I, we're watching these videos of people lining up in the sidewalks outside of prisons, outside of elderly care facilities, and singing, and so it's like, what does it look like to just grab a couple of people and declare our connection and our oneness through singing, through TV trays and deliveries, things like that. One last question here before we sign off. I feel like we could continue this conversation because like, if you're paying attention, there are like 80 bullet points of things that we can be doing hyper locally right now. That my team will be mining and making sure that they stay in front of us throughout the time. But my last question is this, and this is not this is an opportunistic moment, but there is an opportunity because there is a post-pandemic world coming. And so I wonder, from the three of your perspectives, what is the opportunity of this moment with regard to our formation as humans? And what do you think we have to overcome in order to grasp that opportunity? Maya, why don't we start with you?
Right. So I think 2 things. I think, we talk about creating a world where we're just as proactive about our mental health as we are about our physical health. And I think right now we're in a forcing mechanism to figure out how to take care of ourselves and each other. So I think how we do that, how we set up practices that allow for and prioritize whatever it is that you need to take care of your mental health, and how through that we address inequity and the unavailability of resources for so many people. Not everybody has a phone number that they could call to get assigned a therapist. And there's a lot of really important mental health resources that are available at no cost. There's crisis text line. There's the Get Help Now page on the Born This Way Foundation website. Please think about how to take care of yourself, not just physically, but mentally during this time. And then I also think we're shifting, and Morgan's a great example of that, into like an ask forgiveness, not permission mode of helping, right? So it's not like the let me know if you need or if you're looking for, right? Like Morgan needs coffee. Someone took it upon themselves to bring her coffee this morning, right? So if we can all just get like aggressive about identifying and meeting unmet needs, and if someone had already brought Morgan a cup of coffee and there was a second cup of coffee on that stoop, then like that'd be amazing, right? Like if I could just say for the internet, nobody has yet brought me coffee. So just leaving that out there. Born This Way at bornthisway.foundation.
Urban too is fine.
No, but if we can ask forgiveness for doing too much instead of permission to do anything, I think that's how we would get through this.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Morgan, what would you say? What's the opportunity and what do we need to overcome to grasp it?
I think that this is an exercise in overcoming fear, to be honest, and that might sound really simple, but I think that's one of the first things I shared with our group is that love really does overcome fear. That one of the messages I'm just on and on about. Probably people get sick of hearing me type, but that people feel powerless, people feel confused, people are looking for resources. And in the midst of that, we can choose to succumb to that anxiety, to succumb to that fear, to go to kind of a dark place. And it's okay if we do, because like Maya said, there's a lot of resources for that. And this is a difficult time. There's no sugarcoating that. And we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and finding someone to talk to if we need to talk to them. And there is goodness, there is light in the midst of this. There is love, persevering. I tell people when they say like, I don't know how I could even help, all the drops in the bucket matter right now, all the drops in the bucket. And I can't fix this thing. You can't fix this thing. But I think if we work together, actually there is healing in caring for our community and caring for our neighbors. It's kind of I know someone said once, like, just love your neighbors. And we're finding that is actually a way of healing the world right now. That is our way of restoring the world. And right now, this is the most pastoral work I could be doing, but it's really fun to watch people kind of accidentally pastor each other and really care for one another. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, thanks. Terrence, let's go over to you, man.
Yeah, I would, I'm really passionate about people who have